Roommates here! Yeah! Roomies, man.
Mother, the new roommate's here.
Now, of course, I'm a Christian, which means curfew and bedtime is 7:30, lights out at 8:15.
Lynn, I look up there and there's this fellow with his gigantic muscles and he starts talking about panties and tampons and I was like, what the kind of church is this, man? But, oh well, it was the girl that sings was pretty.
What? Girls can wear tights and long shirts, but I can't? How is this different? Something you gotta know about me is I'm the #1 fan of Texas Tech football. I know every stat. I know where Cliff Kingsbury likes to go potty. I've made plans already for one day you may just come over and me and Cliff are just gonna be on the floor making a fort or something.
I like cats.
I'm gluten intolerant, and I'm also intolerant of sin.
Gotcha.
Another thing, there's all this political climate's just getting all crazy in the world, and if it's going to be Hillary or Donald, but I'll tell you this, you know who I'm voting for this year? These two right here. Freaking Cliff Kingsbury and sweet Patrick Mahomes, okay? They're the dream team. We're going to break down the wall in Germany. We're going to break down that wall in China. We're going to break down the Great Wall, the restaurant that's down the road from here. We're going to break it all down. Cliff and Patty Moe, 16.
Congratulations, Roomie. You passed the first test.
Well, if we haven't met, my name's Clayton Walker. I'm the teaching pastor here at Raider Church and pumped to be here with you guys tonight. On July 26th, 2003, I met my last roommate. Her name was Darby. And we got married that day, and she became my last and forever roommate. Okay, now that's a roommate with benefits, all right? I'm just saying, okay? Like we watch a lot of Netflix at my house, all right, if you know what I'm saying, okay? So, if you're a parent and you just happen to be, just ask your kid what that means, or don't, actually, maybe. So one night I come home late, okay? Like my wife, Darby, she is not expecting me at this hour. I was gone on a trip. I was coming home. I thought I'm gonna come home early. I'm gonna surprise her. And so I come home late, like in the middle of the night. I walk into my house. I turn a corner and there is a shotgun in my face, okay? And so I said something super Christian and pastor-like, oh shoot, and moved the shotgun and pinned it up against the wall. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I didn't know it was you. Like I thought someone was breaking into our house. Like we did kind of live in this sketchy area. Like we had a lot of crazy stuff happening on our block. And so I kept a loaded shotgun next to my bed at all times. And so she hears me coming in. She's not expecting me. And she's got that shotgun pointed right in my face when I walk around this corner. And I was like, well, at least I guess I picked the right girl, because if someone's breaking in, I mean, she's ready for battle. Like she was grabbing that shotgun and heading right into danger like a first responder or something. I mean, I couldn't believe it. So she is my forever roommate. And the great thing about having roommates right now is that it really does prepare you. It prepares you for your forever roommate, because learning how to live with someone else and to put up with all their junk, okay, is great practice for when you get married. Because I've got just some news for you, okay? That girl or that guy that you married, okay, or that you're gonna marry one day, okay, they're not perfect, okay? They are messed up, okay? They are jacked up. They're not gonna complete you, okay? And you're not gonna love everything they do. And all the things you think are cute maybe right now, you're going to hate later in life, okay? So just a word of warning and a little bit of encouragement, okay? Just good practice right now, good practice. You learn patience and how to be a good roommate. So in this series, that's what we've been talking about though. Jesus said the second greatest commandment was to love your neighbor as yourself. And so in this series, we've been talking about what does it look like to be a good neighbor, a good friend, a good roomie. And that's hard sometimes, right? I mean, what do you do and how do you respond when your roommate wins at everything? Everything just goes right for them. Like they get the right boyfriend or girlfriend. They get perfect grades. Like they get the new car. They graduate and they get the job or they get engaged and they get the ring on their finger. Like every just seems to go well, go perfect for them. How do you respond when nothing seems to be going well in your world, but everything seems to be going right in their world? How do you respond to that? Or what about when they're struggling? What about when your roommate or your friend experiences loss or is suffering? How do you respond in that moment? You know, it's been said that your true character is revealed or comes out when you win or when you lose, like how you handle victory and defeat. And that's true, but I think it's probably even more so revealed in how you respond to your friends' victories and defeats. So what does the Bible have to say about this? Like, how do we respond when our roommate, when our friend is winning? How do we respond when they're losing? If you got a Bible, open up to Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12. And if you don't have a Bible, if it's not the translation you understand very well, we have free Bibles for you here. I'll also have the verses here on the screen with me here in just a second. You can also go to your phone on your web browser, go to radiochurch.com, click message notes, and the verses and everything will be right there. You can follow along with us. So, Romans chapter 12, what does the Bible say? How do we respond when our friends win and lose? Check this out. Romans 12, verse 15, what does it say? Weep when others are happy, and be happy when others weep. Oh, I messed that up, didn't I? I'm sorry. Let's read that again. Be happy with those who are happy and weep. Oh, and weep with those who weep. That makes more sense, doesn't it? You see, we often get this backwards, don't we? When our friend keeps on winning and everything's going well for them, it can be hard to be happy for them. Like, hey, I just got this new boyfriend. I just got this new girlfriend. What do? We're not happy. We weep. Hey, I got straight A's. What do you know? Look at that. Weep. I got this new car. More weeping. Hey, they proposed to me. Look, I'm getting engaged. More weeping. Okay, so we tend to weep when others are happy. And sometimes, if we're really struggling, we weep or we're happy when others are weeping. Like, there's something inside of us that's actually happy when maybe someone around us loses or fails or experiences loss. So how do we do this? How are we happy when others are happy? Like, what do we do? How do we respond? What does that look like? Well, to be happy when others are happy, here's what it looks like. It means to celebrate their win. Celebrate their win. When your roommate, when your friend, when your neighbor, when they win, we need to celebrate that. We need to publicly honor that and brag on them. We need to celebrate their win. Some of you are probably familiar with the story of David and Goliath. And David, this small little guy, defeats this huge Philistine giant that was threatening the Israelite army. And so all of the entire army, they're all scared of this massive giant Goliath, and he's calling them out. And David, this little shepherd boy, goes out and he takes his stones and he hits the giant right between the eyes and the forehead with the stone. And the giant goes down, he kills the giant. And because of this great victory that David has, he's given command over the army. Saul is the king at this time, and now David is leading the army. And he's having great victory. He's winning. He's having a lot of success. But check out what happens next. When the victorious Israelite army was returning home after David had killed the Philistine, that's Goliath, women from all the towns of Israel came out to meet King Saul. They sang and danced for joy with tambourines and cymbals, and this is their song. Check this out. Saul, the king at this time, Saul has killed his thousands, and David his 10,000s. Uh-oh. This made Saul, King Saul, very angry. David was winning. He was having victories, one right after the next, and people were praising him for it. And this made Saul angry. What's this, he said? They credit David with 10,000s and me with only thousands. Next, they'll be making him their king. So from that time on, watch this, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. Saul was filled with jealousy because David kept winning. And it led Saul to do some crazy things. Saul ended up trying to kill David. He was hunting him down at different points in David's life, trying to kill him. It drove Saul crazy. He was so jealous. He had so much jealousy in his heart that it drove him crazy. He was bitter. And he actually believed that the people were going to make David king, that he was going to be replaced. He was so concerned with his position and what was his that he couldn't celebrate when someone else was winning, when someone else had victory. It made him crazy. He couldn't take it that someone else was getting the attention, that someone else was winning. And here's what Saul found out. Here's what he found to be true. It's that jealousy is the thief of joy. And not only that, because Saul ended up disobeying God and was so filled with jealousy, God actually rejected him as king. And Saul's jealousy became this self-fulfilling prophecy. God rejected him as king and rose David up to become the king, to replace Saul. So not only did jealousy steal, rob Saul of his joy, it robbed him of his success. It robbed him of his position. It robbed him of the favor of God. Jealousy is the thief of joy. It's the thief of success. It's the thief of God's favor. You know, in churches, sometimes can be the worst at this. And you've probably seen this to be true if you're a church person, or maybe you're not a church person because you've seen this to be true. That when one church is doing well, other churches will just bash that church. They'll come down on it. They'll try to pick them apart and find out what's wrong with them because they can't handle it when another church is doing well. Be careful if you ever find yourself doing that. Churches are the absolute worst at this. And so I was shocked and surprised when, probably 5 years ago, the church that planted Raider Church, Experience Life, had been the fastest growing church in the country, or one of them, for several years in a row. And there were churches in this city that didn't like that, and that were talking bad about Experience Life, coming up with all these different things that were probably wrong about them or probably true about them, even though they had never been before. And so imagine how shocked I was when I was driving down 82nd Street one time, and I came across Calvary Baptist Church here in Lubbock, Texas. And I saw their marquee, the sign that's out in front of a lot of churches. And here's what their marquee said: Congratulations, Experience Life, one of the fastest growing churches in America. I couldn't believe it. That another church would be excited for and publicly honor and praise another church. How amazing is that? That they could be happy for someone else who was happy. That they could publicly honor and praise another church who was winning. What about you? Can you celebrate the wins in your friend's life? Can you brag on them and what they've done? Can you celebrate their victory? Can you honor them publicly? Paul told us in Romans 12, we need to be happy with others who are happy. But the second part of that, he said, we need to weep with those who weep. So how do we do that? Well, I think it looks a little bit like this, that we comfort their loss. We comfort them in their loss. Check this out. Paul wrote this in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 3 and 4. He said this, all praise to God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. God is our merciful Father and the source of all comfort. He comforts us in all our troubles so that, watch this, so that we can comfort others. When they are troubled, we will be able to give them the same comfort that God has given us. We need to weep with those who are weeping. We need to be able to comfort others in their time of loss. Now, here's how you don't do that, okay? Let's start there. Here's how you don't comfort someone in their time of loss. By messaging them, by texting them trite sentences and phrases or verses and be like, praying for you, okay? Jesus didn't do that. Jesus wasn't up in heaven and we're down here in our sin and we're struggling, and Jesus didn't, text us and say, hey, heaven's lit, hell's hot, like, good luck. I mean, he didn't do that. He's not texting us saying, the wages of sin is death, Romans 6:23, good luck, hashtag goals, right? I mean, so that's not what Jesus did, okay? How did God comfort us? He showed up. He sacrificed his own position, his own authority, the glory of heaven. He left heaven and he came down to us. He came down to our level. He came and got in the mud with us. He got in the middle of it. He showed up and he touched us and he talked with us and he walked with us. He cried with us. That's what Jesus did. That's how God comforted us. He showed up and he showed us he cared with his physical presence. So how do you comfort your friend, your roommate, your neighbor? How do you do that in their time of loss? You show up. Even when it's uncomfortable, you show up. You put an arm around the shoulder. You agree with their pain. You don't excuse it. You don't come up with trite comments for it. You agree with their pain. You don't tell them it's all going to be okay. That's not, people don't want to hear that. You don't need to come up with some theological answer for their pain. You show up. You put an arm around the shoulder. You pray for them. Maybe you give them a gift. You show up and you show them you care. You come down to their level and agree with their pain. You know, several years ago, I went through a time where I was really struggling. I was having anxiety attacks where at night where I felt like I couldn't breathe, where I was violently shaking, where I was panicking. I felt like my chest was caving in on me. I was having anxiety attacks, panic attacks. And I was having them regularly. I went through a period of time where I would just break down and cry and just continue to sob and sob and sob. I had run myself into the ground working a lot. And I had nothing left. And so I took some time off, and my wife called our best friends. And I hadn't said anything to my friend yet, to her husband. But he called me and said, "Hey man, how are you doing?" And on the phone, I broke down and I told him what was going on. And he said, "Hey, why don't y'all come over?" I said, "Okay." So we went over to their house, and he said, "Hey, we've been praying about it, and we want you to have this," and gave me an envelope. And I opened it up, and it was filled with cash. And he said, "I want you and Darby, I want y'all to take a vacation. It's on us. You've got some time off right now." I took some time away from work just to recover. He said, I want y'all to take this vacation on us. And tomorrow, I've booked a round of golf for just you and me. So the next day, he and I went and played golf, and he just said, "Hey man, tell me what's going on." And for 4 or 5 hours while we were playing 18 holes, I just told him everything that was going on. I just completely unloaded on him. And he didn't try to answer questions. He didn't try to give me verses. He just listened. He was just there. And he just agreed. But he went out of his way. He took off work so that we could hang out. They sacrificed to give us money to take a few days away. But just by doing that, he was a comfort to me and to Darby in our time of trouble while we were struggling. Just by showing up and showing that he cared. And so when your friend, when your roommate, when your neighbor is struggling, don't send them cute text messages. Show up and show them you care. So here's our big idea for tonight. It's this: that true character is revealed in how you celebrate and comfort others. True character is revealed in how you respond, how you celebrate and comfort the people in your life. And so my challenge for you tonight is this: think of someone who's winning right now that you could celebrate. And maybe text them and say, "Man, I'm so proud of you. It's awesome," whatever. Or post it on social media. When you're in front of other people, honor them and brag about them. Celebrate their win. So who is someone in your life that's winning right now, that's had something go right, that's experienced a victory that you could celebrate? Maybe you could let them know tonight before you even leave this place how excited you are for them, how happy you are for them. Or maybe you've got someone in your life right now that's experienced loss. They're struggling. They've had defeat. They've experienced failure. Maybe tonight, or maybe tomorrow, you need to show up. You need to show them you care. But here's the thing: if you can't do that, or if you've struggled doing that in the past, it actually reveals a problem in your heart. It reveals that you're finding your identity and worth in something other than Jesus. You see, Peter said in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9 and 10, he said this, "But you are a chosen people." Like, if you're a follower of Jesus, God picked you. He chose you. He picked you to be on his team. You are a royal priest. You're part of a royal priesthood. In other words, you have a role, you have a job in the kingdom of God. The priest's job in the Old Testament was to intercede, like to be this intermediary between the people and God, and to make sacrifices for them so that they could be in right relationship with God. And in the new covenant, there's a similar role. It's being a witness, it's being an ambassador for Christ. You have a job, you have a role, you have a mission in God's kingdom. You've got a royal mission on behalf of the King. You're a part of a holy nation. You've been given a new community, a new family, a new team to be a part of. You're God's very own possession. He's proud of you. You see, this is who you are. This is where we should find our identity and our worth. It's in Christ. It's in our relationship with God, that God's picked us, that he's given us a royal mission, a royal job in his kingdom, that he's given us a new family, a new community, that he's proud of us. We belong to someone. We have a place to belong in relationship with God. That's where we should find our identity and worth, not in what we have or don't have, and not in what our friend has or doesn't have. But you see, if you can't celebrate when your friend wins and you can't comfort them in a time of loss, it reveals you've got an identity problem. You're finding your worth in something other than Jesus. But Peter says, when you know whose you are, when you get your identity and worth from your relationship with God, check out what happens. As a result, you can now show others the goodness of God. For he called you out of the darkness into his wonderful light. Check this out. Once you had no identity. That was all of us at one point. Before we became followers of Jesus, we had no identity, but now you are God's people. That's your new identity. This is where we are to find our worth and who God says that we are and whose we are and who we belong to. So check this out. It doesn't matter. So what if that girl doesn't pick you? God's picked you. So what if that guy chooses some other girl? God chose you. For the most important relationship that there could possibly be, God chose you. You see, when you find your identity and worth in what you have or don't have, it makes you bitter and desperate and jealous like Saul was. And that's not attractive. But if you find your identity and worth in your relationship with God, then you're strong, you're secure. And that is attractive. But first things first, you've got to find your identity and worth in your relationship with God. Because what you have or don't have, that changes every day. But whose you are never changes. So whose you are and knowing whose you are changes the way you respond to what you have or don't have. Knowing whose you are changes the way you respond to what your friends have or don't have. So here's what I want to leave you with tonight. It's not what, it's whose. It's not about the what. It's about whose. And if you know whose you are, then you can celebrate when your friend wins. And if you know whose you are, then you can properly comfort your friend when they lose. But it's not about what. It's about whose. Let's pray. God, remind us tonight of whose we are. That if we have given our life to Jesus, we are a chosen people. You chose us. You've picked us. And so it doesn't matter who else has picked us because you already have. We're a royal priesthood. We've got a royal job in the kingdom. We're part of a holy nation. We've got a new family, a new community that we belong to. And not only that, we're your very own possession. We belong to you. And so, God, from that foundation, from that identity of whose we are, help us to show our friends, to show our roommates the goodness of God when they win and when they lose. If you're here tonight and just between you and God right now, and you've struggled with jealousy over what someone else kind of in your world has because you don't have it, would you just say that, yeah, that's me? I just want to lift up my hand just kind of as a way of confession and say, yeah, I've struggled with that. Hands up everywhere. Tonight, just right now in this moment, we're going to sing a song. And the words are going to say, I'm no longer a slave to fear. I'm a child of God. I just want you to remember that tonight. It's not what, it's whose. You're no longer a slave to jealousy, to bitterness. You're a child of God. That's whose you are. And from that foundation, from that identity, from Him in that relationship with God where you find your worth now, I want you to sing that song with all of you got. And ask God that as you go from this place tonight, to set you free from that jealousy, to set you free from that bitterness, so that you can show others the goodness of God.